Welcome to Paradigms at paradigms.life, the radio show and podcast that brings you inspiring people with visions of a viable future for life on Earth that includes humans. Hi, I'm Baruch, host of Paradigms. Thanks for listening. I think you're going to enjoy my guest on this episode. He is a jazz trombone player and composer. He's just made a new record called Choices, and we'll be talking about the music and choices and how all that relates to the bigger picture, as usual. So let's get right to it and meet my guest on this episode of Paradigms. William Carn, welcome to Paradigms.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Really glad to meet you and talk with you after listening to some of your music. And what I love to always ask people before we get into the particulars is, what's a bit your story? How did you discover that music was your thing, and was it in your family? And how did you come to this music? What are your inspirations? That kind of stuff.
Sure. My dad has always been and continues to be a great lover of music. So there was always music in the house. So when my friends were listening to, I don't know, let's say Rush and other rock bands, which came later for me, I was listening to Nat King Cole at home because of my dad. And of course, at the time, I didn't like it because it wasn't the fun music that I wanted to hear. But it served me well. I realized as I got older that all those sounds were buried deep in my mind, and they all started surfacing as I got older. And then once I got into playing jazz music, I realized, oh yeah, I know these songs. You know, when my friends had to learn, oh, what is Stella by Starlight, and what is Mood Indigo? I was like, oh yeah, I've heard all these songs like since I was a kid. So that's how I got into it, basically. I mean, and then I learned in school that I had an aptitude for playing trombone at an early age. But I didn't fall in love with the trombone. It was just the instrument I could play, and I didn't want to fail music. So, so that kind of led me down that path, and I just loved making music. So here we are. That's the short answer, I suppose.
Yeah, and the trombone's not easy. So, I mean, none of them are easy.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I know. I'm reminded every day how not easy it is.
So, when did you start playing with people, and especially composing and playing your own compositions with people?
I really started taking music seriously in high school. You have mentors along the way, and I had a fantastic high school music teacher named Jane Cutler, who was inspirational to all of her students. Most of them didn't go into music, but everybody fell in love with music and music appreciation. So our school had a very strong band program, and she herself was a classical flautist, but she was the one who turned me on to jazz and listening to bands I had never heard of. When I was a teenager, it was when Wynton Marsalis became the hot young thing, and Instant Obsession there, and then Ron McConnell and the Boss Brass, and all of these big and small jazz ensemble sounds. And then also classical music as well. And I actually ended up studying classical music for 4 years at university before making the formal switch over to jazz and commercial music, which is the bulk of my career is making that kind of music. The composing thing started in university, again, just out of necessity. You're given assignments and away you go. And then I just discovered, wow, the piano, you can hear it's the whole orchestra right there. So yeah. And that's really where it started. I'd say it was like 19 when I first. No, hold on. No, older, because I didn't get into classical until I was about 20. Jazz until it was 22, 20. Yeah, about 22. I started composing.
Where does the music come from when you compose? Do you hear it in your head? Do you dream it? Where does it come from?
I am a firm believer. This is only speaking for myself in the idea of a muse or something like that. It sounds all, new agey and everything like that. But, I'm a formally trained musician. I understand harmony and chords. All that is there. But the music comes from inside. But also, like, I have spent many hours sitting right here in this chair, facing my keyboard and not playing anything, and just close my eyes and I just listen. And some days nothing comes. And it's like, okay, that's fine. I'll walk away or I'll pick up a trombone and start practicing. But then some days something just hits and I hear it in my head, and then I have to figure it out. It's kind of like who was the very famous sculptor, Renaissance, saying basically the sculpture is within the snow, and he just has to just chip away all the bits that don't matter. So we really just have to release the form that's actually within the stone. And I kind of approach music making that way too. The music is there, and as soon as I hear it, I don't know what it is, and now I just have to kind of reverse engineer it. So that's one way that I make music. Sometimes it is very technical. Like I can get into that kind of thing. But right now, I'm actually writing a suite of music for a nine. My wife and I have a 9-piece band called the Carn Davidson 9, 7 horns, bass, and drums, and that's my acoustic life. So I'm writing what started out as a Brazilian suite, and it's still happening. But I'm suddenly writing a rumba that I heard a few days ago, and so really up until about 5 minutes ago, I was working on this song.
I'm talking with William Carn, who's just released a new record called Choices, and we're going to start listening to it now. We're actually going to get to go through the whole record in this episode, along with some other music from another project he's involved in. So let's listen to William Carn's Choices, starting with Breathe In. This is Paradigms at paradigms.life. listening to William Carn's record Choices, and you just heard The Inertia of Complacency. The second track started out with the first track, of course, Breathe In. We'll continue on this musical journey after we hear the next part of my conversation with William Carn. I love what you said about sitting and listening, not just for the music, but in life.
Yes.
It's where we do find inspiration sometimes. And inspiration, breathe in. We're going to talk about choices in a minute.
Right.
That is life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it right there. I think especially in these times and the world we're in right now, not a lot of people are listening. They're just trying to talk over each other and tell you that they have the answer and they're right and you're wrong. And yeah, it's about really empathy. And people have forgotten that, if just an ounce of empathy, if everyone just kind of focused on that for a second and just try to understand where the other person is coming from and why are they saying the things they're saying, and just try to relate. All of us can relate to each other. I'd say the majority of our lives, we can relate to each other. It doesn't matter if you lived in the Arctic, or you live in Jamaica, or you live in, icy Toronto. We all love food. We all love our family. We all love our friends. And then everything outside of that is gravy. As long as you can survive, you don't need $1 billion. You don't need, I'm sounding like a hippie, and I'm really not. but I like nice things, but you don't need much. We've gone so far beyond survival. Now it's just accumulation and all of this stuff that has just twisted our sensibilities, I think. So, yeah, I don't know.
I really love a lot about Buddhism, and they really talk about attachment and the desire to make things not be what they are as a source of our suffering. And I think greed and the fears that humans have that lead them to try to control others fall under that category, actually, of attachment that's destructive.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm on board. Yeah.
So let's talk about Choices. I just listened to it. I really enjoyed it. It really feels like the whole record is just one meditation that leads you through different spaces and then brings you back out. And I'm a therapist and I do hypnotic work with people. And there's a model called embedded metaphor, where you take people down in gradually and then you take them back up gradually. And that's exactly what this record does.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah. So during the pandemic, this was a pandemic project, again, born out of necessity. As like I've said in other interviews, like it doesn't matter if you were Lady Gaga or little old me in Canada, that we were all in the same boat. We suddenly could not do our work and our passion, and there was no audience to share it with. And so I, like many musicians, we pivoted. So I have never recorded from home before. This microphone that you're hearing me on, I went out and bought a very nice Neumann mic, and I thought, well, here's my chance. I have all the time in the world. And then some work. The only work really I had for about a year was horn section work, that people would say, hey, I need a horn section for this thing. Could you record this part? It's like, yeah, no problem. So just trying to figure out, GarageBand, great. It's on my Mac. I've never used it before. And then once I started recording with it, then I realized, oh, wow, look, what are these synthesizer sounds? Oh, they're really cool. Those sounds kind of led me down another way of hearing the music in my head, or what was possible, because I know the acoustic jazz band sound really well. Like I said, we have a 9-piece band. I've always had a quartet or a quintet, and I've written for that for the majority of my career. So the technology just sent my ears down another path, and that's where this project comes from. Really, is that's it. I'm not sure I answered your question. Was there? You're talking about meditation. That's it. This is a new thing for myself and my wife. Yeah, we've been meditating for about a year and a half now, almost every day, and that's really been one of the greatest eye-opening things in my life. I'd say. Kind of relates back to what we've been talking about. It's just taking a moment and just unplugging. And I cherish that so much. And I get the sense that the majority of the people, whether they know it or not, just hearing their frustrations with technology their devices and life now that has rushed back, and I appreciate it. I love it so much. I love the human connection and all that. But now, even more than before, it feels like everyone has perspective now that we didn't have until 3 years ago. So suddenly this new perspective was forced upon us. And almost nobody that I've come across has said that it was the worst 3 years of their lives. Like, everybody would say, you know what, it was actually pretty nice. Like now, especially now that we're back, even though it's not over, but it is like life is back fully. I mean, the traffic here in Toronto is worse than before. So I think people feel it more now. It's like now we have that perspective. It's like, gosh, I think there's too much going on in our lives. So you're right. The record was structured that way, with the breathe in and the breathe out. The breathing in track really was was me expressing the tension of the beginning of the pandemic, not knowing. And if you listen carefully, you can hear my breath, like me kind of breathing in like a nervous breath. There was actually more of that, but my producer kind of mixed it down. I was being a little heavy-handed with the
Yeah, but by the time you're breathing out, it's
that's it. Yeah. So that's the journey, I suppose.
It's actually perfect for people who want a musical background for meditation, to just put this on and assume the position and go in and see where the music takes you. I found myself, well, I do this with music anyway, and especially jazz. It's traveling music. It's mental traveling music. So I put this kind of music on, and I find myself going through my loose ends. What's a letter I need to write? And all that goes away.
Yes. Yeah, I'm exactly the same. Yeah, the brain has to get rid of whatever it has to get rid of. And then for me, it's like I realize, oh yeah, I'm doing this thing. And then, okay. And then suddenly there's a stillness and you float away a little bit and you come back. It's great. It's great. Yeah.
Interesting how talking about the music begins to move into talking about other things that the music is metaphorical for. Music is alchemy, right? Okay, here's the next track on William Carn's Choices. It's called Heroyam Slava.
собі зранку дві крилаті ракети у площу Свободи. Десятки жертв.
That one's called Get Up. And before that, you heard Heroyam Slava. And this is William Carn's new record, Choices. And now let's get back to my conversation with William. You're listening to Paradigms at paradigms.life. There's one track here where I swear it sounds like this incredible electric guitar, but I don't think it is.
I think I know what you're saying. It is the end of Inertia of Complacency, the second track. It's actually a sax solo. My very talented friend Kelly Jefferson, he's a monster sax player, but he plays this because the solo is actually it's a short solo. So this is the thing about making a record that's completely remote. So none of us played this music together. So I started out with my tracks on my keyboard, and then I sent it to my producer. And my producer, he's an amazing piano player and a whiz with electronic music making. So he figured out what he needs to really play on that track. The second track, the Inertia of Complacency, is really a feature for him. There's like a synth solo, and it's a lot of keyboards on it. And there's no bass on the whole record. It's all, any bass you hear is synth bass. So it's mostly Todd Pentney. That sax solo, my friend actually sent me like 8 different solos. Some of them really saxophony, lots of notes, all that. But because the solo is so short and there's a groove going on, I opted for the more kind of soulful melodic solo that he gave me. And then because of the vibe of the song, I put it through some filters to make it sound like the electric guitar that you said. Yeah, that's it.
It's really great because I knew there wasn't an electric guitar.
No, not on this one.
So what's happening with this music? You're doing interviews, it's getting played on the radio. Is this the kind of thing you can take out? Probably that would be difficult.
Yeah, exactly. I only envisioned this as a recording project. I'm 53, so I kind of was at the tail end of from prog rock onwards. So I listened to a lot of prog rock. I did listen to Rush. I listened to King Crimson, and then all like different bands that of that era, which I loved. And I love the whole aspect of storytelling. So yeah, I wanted to make a record where I'm just telling there's some kind of narrative that feeds through. In this case, these are all songs that are inspired by important things that happened in the world and also personally, because there's a song for Murphy, our eldest cat that passed away in 2021. So these are all important moments to me anyways. I mean, musicians, we write what we know. So Inertia of Complacency, I'll tell you, it's about people friends that I noticed. I'm sure you know people that complain a lot, but never really do anything about it. All they do is complain. Though the song is far from inert, but it was almost like my frustration with that kind of situation. It's almost like me kind of shaking my fist in the air, trying to wake them up. It's like, go fix your problems. Don't just complain about it. Yeah. So that's where that song comes from.
And I wanted to ask, what is the guy saying in Heroyam Slava?
So that's Volodymyr Zelensky.
That's what I thought.
I taped one of his press conferences. This is early in the war. And so Heroyam Slava, I learned from a Ukrainian friend, is the response to Slava Ukraine. Slava Ukraine means glory to Ukraine, and then Heroyam Slava is glory to the heroes. Most likely, I'm assuming fallen heroes, but it could be, the soldiers and the brave people that are still out there. So for me, the song was inspired probably about 2 weeks into the war, and we're just watching the news, and it was just heartbreaking. And seeing it's just astounding the bravery of the people that were still trying to go about their everyday lives, because where the war hadn't reached the certain cities, they were still going about. They knew it was coming. It was like, well, what are you going to do? Okay, let's go to the market. There's still a market there. Let's go. So the Zelensky audio was about one of the early attacks about these missiles entering a town square and killed 12 people. And then at the end, he says, "This is the price of freedom." And then I decided to cut that bit out, and he says it 3 times. And that's what he says. Like the last 3 moments of when you hear his voice is, "This is the price of freedom." And I just repeated it. So in my mind, that song does have a narrative where I'm trying to kind of give the impression of people going about in my mind, it's people going about their daily lives, but almost like this horrible thing's coming. It's like, okay, let's go to the market. What else are we going to do? And then it arrives. And that's the moment where, it sounds like light, but it's almost like, yeah, this bright flash. And then the real work begins. And that's where the trombones come in with this somewhat heroic theme. And then it gets repeated, but more muted later on, like as I imagine the drudgery of going through something like that. Again, I'm so thankful I've never gone through something like that. I had a teacher in university that always would mock us students because he's now about to turn 100. He's still with us. And he said, problem with your generation, you've never gone through war, like hearing us bitching and moaning about things. And it's, again, this idea of perspective. So pandemic's given people, I hope people remember, this is probably the most important thing that's happened to mankind in our lifetime. Besides war, it's like this has affected the entire world. We haven't had a world war in many, many decades. So this is something that was able to shut down the world for at least a couple of years.
We'll be back with the final part of my conversation with William, but now we're going to finish listening to choices, starting out with Goodbye, Old Friend. out. William Carn from his record Choices. Before that, The Gift and Goodbye, Old Friend. And now here's the final part of my conversation with William Carn. Well, you make an interesting point, or you bring up an interesting idea, which is these things that happen, okay, like with the pandemic at the beginning, we had this moment of possibility. The skies over Mumbai were clear. The Ganges ran clean. We saw this moment of possibility, and then in a flash, it was gone. And with war, and my plug, all wars are immoral and destructive, and we have got to evolve beyond this. And with war, it offers us that same moment of opportunity. We don't have to do this. This terrible thing does not have to happen. And so, okay, your record is called Choices.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, I just looked at all these moments, and they're all the results of choices, good and bad. We try to stay positive and be hopeful, but sometimes it's just I like to be realistic too. I know most people are good, but it's the ones that aren't good and make the bad choices. Unfortunately, those people tend to have a lot of power and money, and their choices affect most of the planet, for better or for worse. So we can only affect what we can affect, and otherwise we're along for the ride. And we'll just try to make good choices.
Well, it's a conundrum because we are the people, not just in the U.S. or in Canada or Russia, but we, the people, ultimately elevate these people to their positions and keep them there and enable them to do these things. I mean, if every soldier put down their gun, it would be over. And they did for a few days, at the beginning of the pandemic. And so I can't help but think and believe in the possibility, but I'm not naive enough to think, we're on the cusp of this. Maybe we are. I mean, sometimes I think we'll reach critical mass in consciousness and something will just really shift. But, I'm in my 60s and I am old enough to know that the group learns slowly, really slowly. I mean, really slowly. And as we see, because we're doing the same stuff over and over again. So I don't know.
I feel the same way as you. I mean, we all are in different situations. We talk about privilege. I feel very privileged. My wife and I are very, very fortunate that we're full-time musicians and we have a good life. We've done okay, but we don't have kids. So that affects our life as well. I see my friends with kids and they love their children, and that's something that I'll never know. But also their lives are very hard and very full of things that have to be done. And so most people do have kids. They don't have time to sit and ponder the state of the world, whether in their little circles or on the grand scale. So I think those people that we're talking about, the bad people, they provide the simple answers. And I think that's the danger, where they just see, this guy says he's going to do this. Okay, good enough. Instead of seeing, hold on a second. Oh yeah, no, he's been a failed businessman his entire life, and he's all of these things. Yeah, he's whatever. I mean, it's but people generally like to think, maybe I'm sure there's a simple answer. My dad's like that. I'll say, and I can't get through to him sometimes because he just says, it'll be fine. Everything will be fine.
That's really interesting. I never thought of what you just brought up, but when people have children, it awakens a set of instinctual personal infrastructure scenario, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
That does keep people in that survival mode, because I got to make sure my kid survives. And it's not just an idea or an ideology or a thought, it's an instinct. And so for people who don't have children, that isn't awakened in the same way. Not that their instinct to survival isn't awakened, but it's just different.
Yep.
And that informs choices. Very interesting idea.
Yeah. And again, the majority of people on this planet, with kids, without kids, are good people. But our resource, in this case, time, is finite, and energy and money. So when suddenly you have a little one that you have to help survive and thrive, now your priorities have all shifted, and that's where these shucksters they realize, oh, I'm going to take advantage because they're looking the other way. And it happens time and time and time again when people don't have the luxury, really, like my wife and I do, of sitting around and just talking about, wow, see what's happening. It's like, yeah, it's clear this is why this is, but most people don't have that luxury.
No, and the way that certainly in the big countries, certainly in this one, I'm not in the United States anymore. In the United States, the economy is manipulated to keep people struggling so that they don't have the time and energy to say, wait a minute, this system is not okay. We have to change it, because they're busy. Do I have enough money to feed my kid? Do I have enough money to keep the heat on this winter? Well, the human stories just keep rolling along. And it's always interesting to comment on them. And I really love your perspectives. And we are participant observers.
Yes, that's it. Exactly. Yeah. We can only affect so much, but at least, I don't know. I feel fortunate to have had the time to sit and just think through this. At the same time, sometimes I wish I didn't know. It'd be easier just to put our heads in the sand and, you'll go down to the beach and, gosh.
Hey, it's a choice, man.
Yeah, that's right.
not to beat it to death, but, William, really nice talking with you. I actually would love to talk with you after your next project. I'd like to continue the conversation.
Of course.
Really love your musicianship and your composition and what goes into it. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, there's more coming. I'm working on the next Choices record right now. So
when can we expect it?
Maybe later this year. I'm working on a couple of records right now. So it's it's cold. We're going into February here, so I actually don't have a lot of work booked, so this is perfect. I'm actually really looking forward to just sitting here in my room and seeing what comes out.
Right on. Well, enjoy and be well, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Baruch.
William Carn, thank you so much for talking with me. I really enjoyed our conversation. So many layers and perspectives. If you enjoyed hearing my conversation with William and his music, his website is williamcarn.com. Check him out. Some cool stuff on his website. Lots of great music. So thank you, William, for what you're doing. If you enjoyed this episode of Paradigms, I hope you'll check out our website, paradigms.life, where all of our episodes are archived from the last 14 years. You could also find Paradigms wherever you find your podcasts, including YouTube. Paradigms has a Patreon campaign, patreon.com/paradigms. I hope you'll check it out and become a patron. We really appreciate the support. I enjoyed the conversation with William for lots of reasons, but one of them is that we kept coming around to the idea of choices, and that we all make choices, and that the state of humanity is the result of our choices, which means we can make choices to make things better if we choose to. It really is that simple. So that'll be the word for the week. Choice. What is your choice? What do you choose? How do you choose to behave? How do you choose to relate to the world? We all make choices all the time. Sometimes it feels like we don't have a choice, but we do in many, many things. All right, I am going to leave you with one more track of music, and this is from the Carn Davidson 9, the group that William does with his wife, Tara Davidson, from their album, The History of Us. It's called Home. It's a nice feeling. All right. Baruch signing off for Paradigms. We'll be back next time with more inspiring people. Until then, let's be aware of our choices and be well. You've been listening to Paradigms at paradigms.life.